And welcome back, or maybe welcome for the first time, to the West Georgia Gridiron Podcast. I'm your host, Mason Taylor, as always, joined by my father, my co-host, my producer, Mark Taylor. And this is the third and final episode of our off-season series. We've talked about the top returning players for the 9 teams in our region. We've talked about reclassification and what that means for each team. And now we're going to be talking about the schedules. We're going to be going through and looking at who do they play, where do they play, what does this mean? Is it a potential new rivalry? Is it an established rivalry? Have they never played? We're going to be talking about all that. There's a lot to get into, and so I'm very excited. School is right around the corner. The season's right around the corner. A lot has happened in the last month, but a lot to get into here, and I'm ready to do it.
All right, well, appreciate everybody following us on social media up to this point, and those that may be new, make sure that you're following us on Instagram and Facebook and on YouTube. And if you haven't already subscribed, make sure that you hit the notification bell and then share us for all those that you know may be interested in high school football. You can follow us for audio on Apple Podcast and Spotify. So Mason, you said it. We are on the last episode for the off season. For today's show, we got a lot to cover. You're going to get into that in just a minute, but that just means we're one step closer to the actual season beginning.
Yeah, less than 2 weeks away. I mean, this Friday, Bremen goes back to school. The Friday after that is a lot of these teams' first scrimmages or their only scrimmage. So it is very exciting. I'm kind of chomping at the bits to get back into it, but I kind of have been since December 20th. So I'm just really ready to get into this. Obviously, in this show, we have biggest offseason questions as it pertains to these new schedules. We're going to be looking at how does last year's schedules for these teams compare to this year? Who has the toughest schedules? I'll also pose who has the easiest schedule. But we're also going to have some rivalry games to circle. You know, if you don't have if your team's on a bye week or you don't know, you live in the area, but you're not really, you don't really know much. These are going to be the games that you have to attend. These are going to be the games that everyone's going to be at.
Yep.
So that's what we're going to get into. But before we do that, we're going to kind of start doing this, I guess, for each episode. A lot's happened in the last month. It's been since June, since we've talked. It's almost August. So a lot has happened. I just want to kind of give quick shout outs to guys on these teams that have earned offers.
Okay.
Or, any team accomplishments. For Bowden, senior quarterback Connor Daniel received his second and third offers from Navy and Shorter. Thacker Dudley, senior linebacker at Bremen, committed to Samford. Senior offensive lineman Bryson Jenkins was offered by Erskine Track and Field, so getting it done in 2 sports. Carrollton went down to IMG Academy and won the inaugural Under Armour 7-on-7 tournament. Sophomore quarterback CJ Cipher, who's also a Miami commit, was one of 4 tournament MVPs. Junior defensive back Tyler Boyd received his 45th offer from Virginia Tech.
45.
Yeah, definitely got options, don't you? And then junior receiver Rontre Welch received his 7th offer from App State. For Central, senior linebacker Brock Roberts received his first offer from Culver Stockton, so congratulations to him. Hopefully many more come his way. Junior running back Jace Walton received his 25th offer from Southern Cal. And then senior offensive lineman Tate Crowder received his 3rd offer from Savannah State. For Heard County, sophomore defensive lineman Tatum White received his 10th offer from Miami. Incredible that as a sophomore, he's getting offers from Miami, from Auburn, from Georgia. So he's definitely fun to watch and hard to not root for. And then for Villarica, senior running back Emmanuel Jai, he received his 2nd offer from Point, very much deserved there. And obviously I would be very surprised if he didn't have, a Division II or Division I offer by the time he graduates high school. But now we're going to kind of get into this actual episode, and we're going to start off with the biggest off-season questions as it pertains to their schedules. And I will kind of go ahead and preface that these are all, to me, going to kind of be about defining stretches of their schedule.
Okay.
So there's going to be a couple weeks, a couple opponents, back to back to back to back, that I think is going to define, how do they do is going to define how this team turns out.
And some of your questions, maybe some of the questions that some of our listeners, if you're listening in, you may be thinking, man, I had that same question.
Yeah. So to me, for Bowden, we'll start off with the Red Devils, 4-time Well, they said that at Carroll County Media Day 4-time. They're really the 6-time. Let's put some respect on Bowden Red Devils' names. 6-time state champions, but 4 back, or I guess that was 4. But anyways, the first 4 games of this season is, to me, the biggest question as it pertains to the schedule. How do they do? You go to Bremen, which is a huge rivalry game. We'll talk about that later. But you start off, again, with a new head coach as well. So keep that in mind. You have a new head coach. You're going into a big rivalry game on the road week 1. Then you host a Callaway team that has Pete Wiggins as head coach, who's been there for 20-something years. He's won a state title at Callaway, always has them playing. Then you go to Lamar County, which is, I believe Jamie Abrams actually used to head coach down there at Lamar County. But Lamar County is always a game, especially if you have to go there, that they can definitely get you, and they're definitely a legit opponent. And then you have to host Heard County, who you were up on and lost by 1 last year and was a semifinalist, and all the good things there. So to me, that's the question. How do they start off the year? How do they start off in those first 4 non-region games? They still have 2 more after that, but the first 4 to me are gonna show us, is this still a team that at the end of the year could be in game 15? If they're 3-1 or 4-0 after those first 4 games, obviously I will think, they're probably still good to go for game 15. They might still end up in Atlanta at the end of the year. If they go any worse than 3-1, if they go 2-2 or worse in this stretch, I might start looking and go, maybe, they might make the playoffs. They might go to the second or quarterfinals, but I'm not really expecting too much unless there's major growth during region play, which is going to be hard because their region's not great. So that's kind of the question for me for Bowden.
Okay.
For Bremen, I think it's kind of the opposite. Their defining stretch to me is region play. When you look at weeks 5 through 9, they host Mount Zion, which is a team that they haven't played in a few years. So now they have to start playing them again. They host Model, which they whooped up on them last year. Then they go to Pepperell. They have a bye week, and then they go to Hurd. So again, hosting Mount Zion's a winnable game. To me, that's kind of a toss-up. Model should be a winnable game. But then you go on the road to Pepperell, and then you have a bye week, and then you go on the road to Hurd County. We know what Bremen and Pepperell did last year. They played twice. It was close games both times, closer the second time in the first round. And then obviously Hurd County, Coach Russell said it best, they are the team to beat in that region. And until somebody can prove that they can beat Hurd County in region play, they're the team to beat. They're the head that's being hunted. And again, for Bremen, they have to be 3-1 or better out of that stretch. They have to only lose to one of those teams or none of those teams for me to think that they're going to have a shot at finishing even close to the top of the region, even a runner-up. And that's a very defining stretch. And again, you have a new offense coordinator, you have a new defense coordinator, you have a very strong senior class. So it's definitely possible that they can make it out of this one 3-1 or better. But will they is the question. And I think if they don't, then this is a team that we could see lose in the first or second round yet again this year, which, would be very disappointing.
Yeah. For
Carrollton, obviously, I think they're kind of in the same situation as Bowden. They have a smaller region compared to everyone else. And so they have a lot more non-region games, but they make sure to make them count. This is tough. You start off the year on the road against Rome, a team that's always tricky, a team that's always going to be good. And a
team we normally play, third?
Yeah, usually week 3 has been, the last couple of years, that's been when they play them. And a team that last year, Carrollton me personally, I thought it was going to be a lot more comfortable than it was. It was only 7 points that decided it. That was the closest game Carrollton had all year outside of the state championship game against Buford. And so now they have a new head coach who's won a state title at North Gwinnett. So, again, it's not like he doesn't know what he's doing. But you go on the road to start off against them. Then you do host Columbia, which, should be pretty comfortable. But then you go to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, to take on Catholic, who's a state title contender. Had a somewhat decent game against Edna Carr, who's one of the top teams in the whole country last year. Then you host Hateville Charter, who was a 2A state runner-up last year. And then you host West Charlotte, who for the last few years have been in the state championship race in their class in North Carolina. So, again, for Carrollton, it's kind of expected they go 5-0 outside, these first 5 weeks. But 4-1, 5-0, I'll accept either one. I'd rather have 5-0, but 4-1 or 5-0, and obviously Carrollton is still a battle-tested team, ready to beat Douglas County, and
I knew you would throw that one
and
in
then
there.
potentially again make a very, very deep run in the playoffs. But if God forbid, they're 3-2 or worse in those first 5 weeks, then there might be some trouble in paradise for the Trojans of Carrollton. For Central, I think there's kind of two parts. How do they do in their first 4 games? Again, the last 2 years have been kind of, they've had their balance of difficult and non-difficult non-region opponents. This year, Coach Brown really made sure to schedule some tough opponents, and I'm all for it. They go down to Franklin to take on Heard County week 1, which, despite them being a smaller school, you still have to go on the road to play them. They were a semifinalist. They still have athletes all over the field. They're a well-coached team. Still going to pose a challenge and could be a game that Heard County could win. Then you host Jonesboro, always has athletes. And that was a game that Jonesboro made a 3-point game, made them win it off of a last-second field goal last year. So, even despite Central maybe being the better team, Jonesboro always has the opportunity to make it close. Then you go to East Paulding, which is a game that you could lose. I mean, East Paulding's a good team, and they're hosting. And then you host Houston County, Houston County's coming off of one of their strongest seasons in their program history, and they pretty frequently have been a good team. They lost to Rome last year in the second round, but the year before that, I believe they were in the quarterfinals. So again, if they can go 3-1, if they can go 4-0 in those first 4 games, I think they're still a quarterfinal or better team there in 5A. But then you look at weeks 6 through 9, that's region play for them. They go to Harris County, they go to Starrs Mill, then they host LaGrange and go on the road to Whitewater. So 3 of those 4 region games are on the road. And this is where I think the region title is going to be won, right? You go on the road to Harris County, who, Harris County's had some good teams in the past. Last year was kind of, I guess you would say, a down year for them. Starrs Mill, kind of the same exact situation. You're having to go on the road to both of those teams, so they could have the opportunity to be back what they were, or they could still be where they were last year, where they're not too hot. But then you host LaGrange, who's been a semifinalist the last few years down in 3A. And then you go on the road to Whitewater, who's one of the more underrated teams, I would say, kind of overlooked. They were down with LaGrange in 3A the last few years as well. But this is where it's going to be won. I know they still have to play Griffin after this, but to me, if you can win all those games right there, which to me I think they have an opportunity to, and they should, they're going to be winning a 4th region title in a row, because I think LaGrange is better than Griffin. And again, I think if they can get out of that stretch with a good record, Central's in the seat for a 4th championship, a region title, and then obviously heading into the playoffs, ready to go for a potential semifinal or better run, trying to get over the hump. For Harrelson County, I think their defining stretch, I will say, is weeks 6 through 10. New region, they're coming off of a year where they went 7-4, was a 2-point conversion away from a second round rematch with Heard County. The year before that, they went 1-9. Last year was the first year in a while they made the playoffs. So a lot to look forward to, but you're going up to AAA now, a new region. The only team familiar is Temple. So outside of that, you're hosting Therrell. Then you're going on the road to Wesleyan. Then you're going on the road to Temple. Then you're hosting North Cobb Christian. Then you're going to Lovett. I haven't even mentioned KIPP Atlanta yet. So that's a lot of
Atlanta region teams.
Yeah, a lot of tough Metro Atlanta teams there. But that stretch, week 6 through 10, to me, I think this is going to decide whether they make the playoffs or not. If they can go 3-2 or better in this stretch, then I think they have a good chance of making the playoffs. Now, what seed they get, I don't know. But I think if you look at this, because Temple, let's be honest, I love Temple, but new head coach, weren't too hot last year. Harrelson County should be favorited in that one. They'll probably beat Therrell because they're pretty awful. But then if you can get one at home against North Cobb Christian, that puts you at 3-2 right there. And to me, if that's how it were to go down, or some other variation of 3-2 or better, then I think that, again, they're going to make the playoffs. But if you're going worse than that, then I wouldn't. We might still be adjusting to the AAA ball. For Heard County, I think the biggest stretch for them, a lot of people would say it's the first 3 games for them. I would agree, but I think the most defining one to me is going to be weeks 9 through 11. You host Bremen, then you go on the road to Pepperell, who was the region runner-up last year, another semifinalist. Then you host Mount Zion. Those are the 3 teams that are vying for your spot. If Heard County wasn't there, one of those 3 teams would be the region champion. So, if Heard County can obviously beat all those teams, they'd be 4-0, or they'd be 3-0 right there, and obviously would win another region title and still be in the driver's seat to push for a state title. But again, Bremen, you host Bremen, which is good, but Bremen's going to bring it to you this year. You go on the road to Pepperell, which is still going to be tough because you're on the road. And then you host Mount Zion, who, again, you're hosting, but Mount Zion, they were a decent team last year. They were very close. They were a score and a PAT away from beating a semifinalist and on the road and down in Early County, almost Florida, and going to the quarterfinals. So, again, that stretch right there to me is very key. And then you also, though, again, first 4 weeks, but 3 games, that's going to be pivotal too. You host Central, which it's going to be a tough one, even though you're at home. You host Clarkston, which they're trash, so they'll beat them. But then you have a bye week, and then you go on the road to Bowden. And so, again, if you can start off 2-0 and then have a bye week and then start off 3-0, obviously right before region play starts, you're in a fantastic position. You're in the best position you can be in. And, again, when you're one of the favorites to win the state title in 2A, you need all the favoritism you can get, and you need to be on your A game. And again, with a huge senior class, you could argue that if they win a state title this year, it could be one of, if not the best senior class that Heard County's had. I'll go ahead and put that out there. Ethan Tisdale, Zay Moreland, Dooney Coleman, etc. Those guys right there, they're going for a state title. And again, hosting those first 4 weeks of the season are going to be pivotal to see really what Heard County has. Because I'll go ahead and tell you right now, they're not favorited against Central, even though they're at home. Moving on, though, we'll talk about Mount Zion. They have a big stretch that's going to define it. I would go ahead and say 5 through the end of the regular season is tough for them. Okay, it's important for them. You go on the road to Bremen, which that's a road game, could be a coin toss. Then you host Darlington, who, again, Darlington's had some good teams in the past. Just ask Mount Zion. But again, not sure, that'll still be a test for them. Then they go on the road to Model, should be pretty, easy. But then you host Pepperell, that's going to be tough, even though you're at home. Then you have a bye week. Then you go to Coosa, which should be fairly easy. But then you go on the road to Heard County, and then you host Armucci. So basically, their whole region is pivotal for them. Mm-hmm. If they can go 6-1 or 7-0 in region play, obviously that puts you either as the region champion or as runner-up. And to me, when you're looking for your first region title since 2018, and you're in this is the first time ever that they've always been in single A. So this is the first time that they're actually in double A. This is the biggest the school's been. You're in a new region, new opportunities. You're coming off of a fairly decent season, 8-4, again, very close to a quarterfinal appearance. This region is pivotal. It's definitely a region that they can contend in. It's definitely a region that you could see them going and being a runner-up if everything aligns. But again, though that region schedule for them is pivotal. They have some pivotal games. Good thing is that a lot of those favor them. You have to go to Heard, and you have to go to Bremen, but you also get to host Pepperell. So at least you don't have to go to all 3. But again, that's, a team that has potential to win a region or compete in a region. The region schedule is obviously, to me, going to be the most pivotal. How do they do? Because, again, when you're close to a quarterfinal, now you're in double A. Are you still a team that can make a quarterfinal in double A or a second round in double A? Or are you going to now be like, well, we're struggling to make the playoffs or we can't get out the first round? And, again, with Coach Brad Gordon, I think they're a team that's a coaching staff or a team that's experienced enough that they can navigate that well.
I agree.
Temple, we're almost done here with the offseason questions. Temple, this is interesting enough because you have Coach Humphrey coming in. He was the offensive coordinator at Rome for the last few years. Now he's coming to be the head coach at Temple. And again, I think it's kind of a similar situation to Mount Zion. Weeks 4 through 12, that's basically their entire region schedule is going to be pivotal for them. You host Therrell, you go on the road to Kip, you go on the road to Holy Innocents. That's tough right there, having to go on the road for those two. Then you host Commerce, which is not in your region. That is a non-region game, but Commerce, they're looking to be on the uprise this year. Had a down year last year, but I think the last year was one of the first times in a long time they haven't made the playoff. But Commerce is definitely going to be back this year. They have enough talent to do it at least. But so then you host them, you host Harrelson, then you have a bye, then you go to North Cobb, then you host Lovett, then you go to Wesleyan. And again, that's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 region games and 1 non-region game. Again, I think you have to maybe lose two or 3 of those region games if you want a shot of reaching the postseason. Again, Holy Innocents, Kip, Harrelson, Lovett, Wesleyan, maybe even North Carolina Christian, all those are going to be tough. And so again, I'll say this, my expectations for this Temple team, unfortunately, aren't too high this year because of how they did last year. They're moving up to AAA, and they have a new head coach. That's kind of the triple whammy right there. But best case scenario is they have 2 losses or 3 losses in region play or better, and that would obviously put them in the playoffs. But anything worse than that, it doesn't even matter what they do in non-region play. They won't make the playoff. And honestly, I'll go ahead and say this. I know you kind of feel the same way. Temple is such a hard team not to root for.
Yeah.
Like they're just one of those teams that every year you look at them, kind of like a Harrelson County as well. You kind of just look at them and you go, man. Or I'll even say this, as someone who goes to Carrollton, this is kind of something historically is not really accepted. I kind of feel the same way about Villarica. These are teams that I kind of just. It's hard to root against them when the season happens. I really want the best for them. I look at, coming into the season, I look at Temple and I go, man, I just really want them to do good this year.
Yeah,
I really
agree.
want them to compete and win a region title or make a deep playoff run.
They shared during the media days yesterday some of their goals, the 3 young men that came representing the team and their coach. I wish all the best for the coach for season, but he's got, the knowledge, he's got the experience, he's got the heart for his players and wanting the best for them and to help them succeed as young men on and off the field. But I would say just listening to their goals, I mean, it's very ambitious. I love, Jojo Jones, I'm a big fan of him. But to hear him say, I want 1,500 to 2,000 yards, I'm like, yeah, let it go. And then you've got, defensive side, hey, I'm wanting at least 100 tackles, or more. So, I mean, there's some ambitious goals, and I think they have all the skills to get there. Now, I'm going to say this, if anybody's listening from Temple, Mason wants you to go back to the tiger stripe helmets. I like the helmet you have now. Well, Mason wants to go back to the tiger stripes.
I don't think that they changed them, though. I think that was just – they just had an old helmet. That was the one they were using.
Oh, for just the media day? Yeah, okay, well, there you go.
I don't think they changed it.
All right, I hope not.
I do like the tiger stripe kind of Bengal style helmet. I do like that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, again, I'm not saying Temple can't be good in the future. I'm just saying, first year right out the gate, my expectations are really low. And, it's unfortunate. I don't like to say that, but it is. And now heading into Villarica, though, kind of the same situation with a new head coach. But I will say my expectations aren't quite as low.
What were you most impressed about yesterday at media days? Tell everybody.
I will say I liked that. I always like that Carrollton goes in suits, right?
Okay.
And I like that they might not all be uniform, they might not all be the same color suits, but they're always all in suits, and I really like that. I think it's very classy. I think it's I just like it. Villarica pulled up in button-up shirts with ties, and they all looked uniform, all same ties, same shirt. I loved it. And Coach Hilbert came in a suit, and I'm not dogging on anybody for having a little polo or jerseys or anything like that. I'm not saying that at all. But my cup of tea, I just like it when they all look very presentable, very nice. I think it says a lot about the coach and kind of what they're doing.
It was a nice surprise for you. They showed up and yeah, nice. Nice tie.
And I think that kind of shows it. And I might be jumping the gun a little early here, but I think that just kind of shows what Coach Hilbert is doing at Villarica. He's changing the culture. To me, for the better. And a team that in Villarica that has had a lot of coach turnover in recent history. I mean, even the coach that won the state title, their only state title back in the '80s, Coach Schwafford, he was only there for 2-3 years. So, I mean, again, this, Coach Hilbert, I just really want him to establish a program and really just be able to have Villarica competing.
He's locked in.
Yeah. But for talking about Villarica, I think their region stretch is the question. How do they do in region play? Because if we're looking at their non-region schedule, let me pull it up real quick. I mean, let's look. They host Alexander, which they beat them last year. Should probably beat them again. They go to Hiram, which Hiram played Central last year, didn't look too hot. They host South Paulding, who they beat last year. They go to Seconder, which is a newer school in the Beaufort area. So I will say I don't know too much about them. I will say that one probably could be a toss-up, especially on the road. But then, that's their non-region schedule. So to me, it doesn't sound too tough, and I'm not dogging on them for that. But again, that doesn't seem like that's going to define their season for me. What's going to define their season for me is when you play Cass. I think they host Cass. When you host Cass, when you go to Cartersville, when you host Woodland, when you go to Allatoona, then you have a bye. Then you go to Dalton. Then you host Cedartown. Going to Dalton and Cartersville alone, that's a lot right there. Having to make those trips against really decent teams, well, decent for Dalton, excellent for Cartersville, they have to finish 5-2. I think that's the goal. You don't want to have 3 losses in region play because, let's be honest, they're a team that could obviously very well be 4-0 heading into region play. So, at best, this team could go 8-2. And this could be a team that Cass and Cartersville could be their only 2 losses. Dalton, to me, is a team that's on the rise, but still a team that Villarica can compete with and beat. So, again, 5-2, you want to, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You want to go, 4-2 or better in region play? I think that's a very realistic goal. I think if you're 3-3 or worse in region play, I'm not looking. You might make the playoffs, but you're not looking too hot with momentum or anything like that.
Yeah, there's no advantage to that for sure if you're going in lower in the.
But those are kind of the bigger, and I know they're all kind of pertaining to stretches of the season, but that's just kind of how I wanted to do it. And I think those, to the schedule, those are kind of the biggest questions for some of these teams is these certain stretches where they have to go on the road here, host here, or just the teams back to back to back to back.
All right, now I'm going to put you on the spot. I know we spent a lot of time just on the biggest questions, but I think that sets a great foundation for the rest of these. We're going to just kind of go through quickly some of these others, but I think just if you were to look back at all the teams you just mentioned, what is the one biggest off-season schedule question for any of those teams? Just overall, pick one team. What is your biggest question, and who is it?
So I'm just picking
one team. Is it a Mount Zion? Is it a Temple? Is it a Villarica?
Well, I'll go.
Is it a Harrelson County?
I'll go for a team that I think legitimately is on the rise. I will say, I'll give you an analogy. It's like, they won a state championship, then they went down the elevator into the hotel lobby. They were in the hotel lobby for a few years because they couldn't figure it out. They finally went up the first flight of stairs by winning a region title. Then they went up a few more flights of stairs, and now they're on the semifinal level. And I think it's just a matter of time, whether it's this year or next year, where they're in the state championship game for Game 15. And that's Heard County.
Okay, because this could be one of 2 teams. I was thinking so.
How do you do against Bowden and how do you do against Central? Because if I'm being honest, they have some good teams in that region, but they're still the favorite. Okay?
That's your biggest question.
They're still the team that's going to probably go undefeated in region play. So if they can beat Bowden and Central, this might be the team to beat in 2A and probably will be in Atlanta for Game 15.
Well, I know they listen in, so all the best to you this season. And as they said at the media days, I hope you're the one hoisting up the trophy at the end of the season. All right, well, let's talk about the 2025 compared to 26 comparison. Not a lot of content here to really talk about, but just kind of what stands out to you.
what stands out about Bowden first is their region schedule or their non-region schedule got a lot more difficult this year.
Okay.
Yeah, they had Fellowship Christian last year. I mean, and they had Herd, but outside of that, it wasn't too difficult. Now, again, those first 4 games for them are tough. And so to me, I think that that's kind of the difference. They go for, because they have about the same exact region as they did last year. So now you go from having a not as difficult region to now you have a pretty tough non-region schedule. For Bremen, I'll kind of echo the same thing. I think that their non-region schedule got smaller this year.
Okay.
But, I mean, Raven County was a good team. Bowden was a good team. But outside of that, both McNair and Jordan were trash last year. So, now you're going to Lakeview, Fort Oglethorpe. You're playing Harrelson County. Those, to me, their non-region schedule this year, again, is a little bit tougher than it was last year. And it kind of makes for a more exciting start to your season. For Carrollton, I'll say, if I'm being honest, there's really not too much difference. I think that the non-region schedule, despite not playing Woodward anymore, despite not playing Gainesville anymore.
These 2 out-of-state games, I guess.
I mean, non-region schedule is still about as tough as it can get. Your region's basically the same. So really, Carrollton's schedule last year pretty much is very similar to this year. Not a whole lot of difference.
I'd agree.
For Central, I'll echo what I said about Bowden. They got a harder non-region schedule, and I love it. Spalding was not a great team. Hiram's not a great team. Villarica, no offense, last year got smoked by Central. So now you replace those teams with a Houston County, with a Jonesboro, with a Herd County, with a East Paulding. Again, makes for a more exciting start to your season, lets you know what you have early, and it's tough. It gets them real battle-tested to start off the year.
You felt that they were a little weak on the non-region.
Yeah, a little weak. I mean,
doesn't really serve them well to going into region play.
Right, and and they still did fine. But again, when you're up against Benedictines, I would want to have played Houston County instead of, Hiram. For Harrelson County, again, kind of echoing the same thing. I will say this, though. Their region, to me, got a lot tougher. And I'm not saying that to bash Herd County, Temple, Pepperell, Bremen, none of them. But to me, when you're playing Holy Innocents and then North Cobb and then Kip and then, you're going to Lovett and then you're going to Wesleyan, these are all teams that have coaches that have, these are either programs that have won state championships in the past in recent memory, or they've competed for them, or they have coaches that have won them, that's a tough region schedule, and it's a long one as well. It's a very long region schedule. But I will also say their non-region schedule got somewhat tougher as well. Sardis, not expecting a whole lot out of them, but Bremen, still, that's going to be a good game. Miller Grove. I'll say this, Miller Grove is one of those teams in the Lithonia area, doesn't get a whole lot of mention because they are kind of a smaller school in 3A. They're on the rise, and I think they have enough athletes to make that a very interesting game against Harrelson County. And I kind of like that. I kind of like these abstract games where it's just like some team, Columbia or Miller Grove. It's like, I kind of like seeing that stuff, and I think that's going to be a great competitive game. So Harrelson County, I think their whole schedule just got tougher.
And let's point out real quick, because the coach pointed it out, he was thankful for all the fans that came out. They have a tradition that they have their first padded practice at midnight, and he said that there were a lot of people come out for that. Well, that's awesome. If we have a fan base that'll come out at midnight and watch it. So I like that tradition. It's unique.
For Herd County, again, I hate to just keep piggybacking, but when you go from playing Clarkston, South Atlanta, Murphy, and Bowden in non-region play to Central, Clarkston, and then Bowden, I think, again, you have one less team to play, but still, to me, Central's better than Murphy. You're still playing Bowden. That's tougher in and of itself. They got rid of South Atlanta. Now they're just scrimmaging them instead of actually playing them. I still have Clarkston, but got slightly better. Region, again, pretty much the same. So not a whole lot to say about Herd other than, their non-region slightly shifted.
Is anybody that plays South Atlanta feel like it's always a scrimmage, though? So... Sorry, if anybody's listening,
and that's so unfortunate.
I'm sorry, but
that's unfortunate
it's
for
true.
South Atlanta. They were pretty decent. They had a decent season a few years ago, but I have no sympathy for But then Mount Zion, I would say that their schedule is kind of interesting as well. You know, they go from playing Chattahoochee County, Ranburne. I'm glad they got them off the schedule. Bethlehem Christian, Chattooga, Baconton Charter. A lot of easier games. I will say that this year might be a little slightly more challenging. Again, region, you have a whole new region, so their region got 2 times as hard now. Now before it was really only Bowden and maybe Manchester they had to compete with. Now it's obviously Hurd, Bremen, Pepperell, etc. But non-region play, I would say, got slightly harder. It got shorter, but Calvary Christian from Columbus, they're a GIAA team, but it doesn't matter. They're still going to come in, and they have athletes that can compete. Taylor County, they're going to be pretty decent
Speaks for
as well.
itself. Yep.
Towns County's all right, but got shorter and got tougher for the non-region schedule. So kind of the similar idea as everyone else. Moving on to Temple, I'll be honest, their region got tougher because they moved in that region with Harrelson County, but their non-region schedule was probably tough. I mean, it was probably about the same. I mean, they go to Osborne this year, which Osborne, not great. Dade County, not great. And last year it was McNair, Clarkston, Tryon, South Atlanta. All those teams were not great. So, not a whole lot. I would say for Temple, just the main takeaway there is just their region got a lot tougher. Well, I forgot Commerce. They do have Commerce, so I will say they do have now at least a team that could beat them in non-region. But yeah, just really their region got tougher. And then for Villarica, I'll say this: I think their schedule got easier.
Wow.
Non-region play: Alexander, Hiram, South Paulding,
I'll give you that.
Seconder. You have that when last year you played Troup County, Northgate, and Central. So to me, it did get easier.
And we already know how that Central game came out.
And I'll say this: I'm not too sure how I feel about the region difference. I think it probably is more difficult this year, but it's kind of similar. I mean, you go from having Rome, East Paulding, New Manchester to Dalton, Cartersville, and Cass. So yeah, I mean, it's probably about the same. I mean, it's probably more difficult this year, but region's kind of similar. But non-region schedule got easier, which is kind of a shame.
Do you think that the road to Mercedes-Benz goes through Cartersville in that region that they have to play, or?
I mean, history shows that that's exactly how it goes. So, I mean, Cartersville was, they were in the quarterfinals last year. You could argue they probably should have been in the semis, but Cartersville always has a good team. They've, I think I saw a stat: last 5 of 6 head coaches that Cartersville's had, they've all won at least 3 region titles as the head coach at Cartersville. That includes Joey King. So, I mean, they're always a good team. Let's be honest. So,
all right, Wildcats, get ready. All right, we're going to transition now to the toughest team schedules.
Ooh, this one's kind of basic. I mean, I think we know who we're going to talk about in this one. Toughest team schedules. The toughest is Carrollton. I'm not going to hear about it from anyone else. I don't want to hear it. Carrollton has the toughest.
If anybody argues that,
I mean, look,
you got to take us to lunch to argue with us, but
you go play.
We'll sit down with you.
You go play Rome and Catholic and West Charlotte and Hateful, and then go play Douglas County and Westlake and Region play, and you tell me how you do. That's the only thing I'm going to say about that. They have the toughest. Second toughest though, that's a pretty interesting. You could go for Bowden. I think it's a 3. I think Bowden, Hurd, or Central all
3-way tie.
I think we'll say Central. We'll say Central.
Oh.
Because their region's tougher than Bowden's.
Okay.
And they have a very similar non-region kind of difficulty. But I will say Central has the second hardest. Then I'd probably say Bowden. That's kind of your top 3 right there. I'll tell you who's the 3 easiest though. And this one,
no, we're just on toughest. We've already said the 3 easiest.
Well, I'll tell you right now that the easiest is probably going to be. Ooh, this one was a bit more difficult than I expected it would be. It's the 3 easiest. I'll just give you that. It's probably going to be Temple, Mount Zion, and Villarica, kind of that bottom half. And, a lot of people might not like that, but, just some of those teams might impress you with region schedule, but then they have a crap non-region schedule, or or it's vice versa, or it's kind of a mixture of both. I'm not saying anything about that because it's not necessarily all about strength of schedule, but I think one of those three teams probably has the weakest.
All right, well, this is the segment I've been looking forward to, Mason, as we wrapped up this last episode of off-season, but rivalry games to circle.
Well, I'll go ahead and preface that a lot of these are going to be just two teams in this region that play each other. Obviously, for Bowden, like when they play Herd or when they play Bremen, which Bowden-Bremen is the biggest rivalry in this area.
I think so.
I'm not going to argue that with anybody. That is clear. When you've played every single year since for 70 years, obviously, I think you get the trophy. So now, most competitive. Now, I don't know about all that, but it's definitely the biggest rivalry. But Bowden-Bremen, Bowden-Herd, Herd Central,
yep.
Harrelson-Bremen, Harrelson-Temple,
which says a lot for this region that you actually have that many great teams that you look forward to. Like, that's going to be a good game.
Yeah.
Not everybody can say that.
Well, but then I'll also say this. There are some rivalries. The reason I don't say Mount Zion's really a rival of Bremen is because Bremen's 42-1 against them all time. To me, I think you got to win a few more than just one to be able to have a rivalry. It just seems like Bremen was whooping up on them for 43 years. But, and I'm not trying to make Mount Zion people upset, but.
Oh, they're upset.
But, yeah, a lot of these rivalries are just between teams in this area. I will say that there are a lot of rivalries that are kind of older, that are, it was more of a rivalry back then. It ain't quite
more historical.
Days. Yeah. That's kind of like your Villarica Cedartown, or, I'm trying to think if there's any more. But then there's also current ones like Carrollton, Douglas County, or Carrollton, Rome. Those are two big ones I know personally for Carrollton. And again, a lot of these teams, there are some that it's more, Mount Zion, Darlington. It's more of a kind of older rivalry. It's not Mount Zion, Bremen, stuff like that. But again, a lot of these teams play each other, and I think we're blessed to have that opportunity. Bowden plays Bremen, Bowden plays Herd, Bremen plays Bowden, Bremen plays Harrelson, Bremen plays Herd, Bremen. I can go on.
Who you circling on your calendar?
Ooh, well, I think obviously the first game of the year when Carrollton goes to Rome. No, I'm just kidding. When Bowden goes to Bremen,
that's
obviously I think that's the right game to circle rivalry wise.
That's it.
I know a lot of people would have got mad if I would have stuck to that Carrollton one. I probably would have been named biased and everything else. But Bowden Bremen's definitely the one to circle, if any. I think down the road, Bowden Herd is definitely one you need to circle. I would say Harrelson Bremen's a decent one to circle. I don't know which week that falls on, but that one, Carrollton, Douglas County, obviously. I mean, that is the rivalry to me.
Well, we appreciate everybody hanging out with. I agree with all those, Mason, and there's a lot to look forward to for sure. We have a special region in Central West Georgia for high school football. I would say outside of South Georgia, that we can say that. And man, I'm so glad to be a part of it. So here's what I'm excited about as well: 2026 season kickoff. That's coming in August. I cannot believe we're less than a month away. We're 2 weeks away from a scrimmage, and then we're going to get started on August 21st, y'all. So you be in the stands, we'll be in the stands. Mason will be in the booth at Carrollton, and we'll have the guys at some of our sports media outlets that'll be covering football live or on radio. And so we appreciate all that everybody does for high school football. And of course, as we always say, there's nothing like football Friday nights in West Georgia, and there's a reason, and we just shared a lot of that with you. So make sure, again, you're following us on social media. Make sure that you're tagging us. Make sure that you call somebody. Tell them, hey, if you haven't checked out West Georgia Gridiron Podcast and Mason, you want to follow him this season because he's going to be doing some special things, Mason. We don't want to give it all the way yet, but there's some surprises coming. All right, Mason, as we wrap it up, any last words?
Just this season, really go out and support your teams. Stay in school. Kids, stay in school. But go out and support your communities. Go be a part of the community. We're very lucky to be in the area that we do with the kind of quality football that we have, and as many schools as we have. We almost have 10. So just go out, support your community, support your players. Hopefully, maybe you'll see me at a game or two, that I'm not at Carrollton. But obviously the best case scenario and what I want to see is every single one of these teams hoisting a trophy in Atlanta come December. It can't always happen, but that's definitely the goal. And I'm just very excited to get into this season.
Wow. We are at it again. 2026 season kickoff coming in August. Look forward to it. Make sure, again, you're following us so that you don't miss any of those episodes. And you'll be seeing some content coming from us to make sure that you're reminded that we're about to kick that off. But as we say, there is nothing like Football Fridays in West Georgia. We'll see you here in August.